Well, good afternoon. It has been, a couple weeks since the last video, I think. It's probably going to be pretty typical for the rest of this project to do a bi-weekly update, just because now the airplane is pretty much built, and now it's just finishing and, little things like that. So from a week-to-week type situation, there's not going to be too much done to the airplane that's really going to be noticeable to look at or talk about, because now it's just tedious fitting and all that kind of good stuff. But since the last video, so much has been done, and probably just looking at it, you can see several of those things have been done. So I'm going to try to go in the order that I've kind of done things up to this point. Let's get at it. So first of all, yeah, it's really starting to look like an airplane that's ready to go out and fly. Probably the biggest thing, and what I thought was going to be the most challenging, which actually turned out to be pretty easy, was the intakes here for the on the leading edge. So the way this started out is just this balsa wood piece here gets glued to the plywood sub-leading edge. But then there's a big old gap because the leading edge actually goes to here. So this wood piece actually sat up about this much higher than the sheeting itself. So I had to figure out what's the best way to fill that area in and blend it in with the rest of the wing. And I thought about trying it with balsa and then just, kind of sanding it into place, but I figured that's going to be a lot of intense sanding. Excuse me. And I'm probably going to damage the surrounding sheeting area trying to sand that. So what I did is first I filled in, I used just a straight piece of wood going from the edge of this piece here and running it along the top skins, and that gave me kind of a point where I used a pencil just to just kind of a reference line where this is the area that has to be filled in to blend. So I started by just using the cheapo just hardware store spackle, and just using a knife and just literally just mushed it in there and kind of feathered it out to that pencil line, actually going just past it. Then once that dried, I was able to sand it to shape and get it pretty close. But because I'm covering this, I'm not glassing it. That really cheap spackle is really porous, it's really spongy, so it's not going to take to a covering material very well. So now that I had it relatively close with that cheap spackle, I put the deluxe model filler, which is intended for this type of situation, and put a thin layer of that on top of it and really blended it out nice. Sanded it, shaped the front end and all that good stuff. And then to go a step further, I poured a bunch of medium CA on it and just worked it around and really forced it in there. So once the CA dried, I was able to sand everything smooth and make it blend. And I could sit here and sand it with 220 right now, and you'll see no white dust coming off of it because it has been saturated with CA and it is just tough as nails. So that is ready to get covering, and I sealed the inside using, just, believe it or not, just caulk. So now once everything is covered, I'll be able to paint that area black, and that'll finish that out. And it turned out really well. Might be kind of hard to see the bottom, but yeah, everything blends. Of course, I ended up cutting away quite a bit of what I blended on the bottom to accommodate the gear doors, which was another nightmare in its own, but we'll get into that in a minute. So yeah, that was done, and the wing fits the fuselage really well, and I haven't really fit it yet. That's just how it sits in the saddle. But, when you look at those intakes from the front, they just turned out oh so lovely. Fantastic. Pardon my scratchy voice. I got so many issues, but it is what it is. um, over this last week, I cut the pockets for the elevator servos. These actually turned out quite easy because the cutout is actually right between two stringers, and by putting some hardwood blocks on the inside of the stringers, when the servos go in, they actually recess quite a bit. So not very much of the servo actually sticks out. So that turned out really nice. I was going to mount the servos in the stab, but I figured by the time I do that, I'm taking structure away from the stab, then I'm adding weight of doors, and yeah, I just didn't want to do that. And these are kind of tucked away underneath. They're kind of out of sight. If I feel feisty, I could paint the servos, but I don't like painting servos just because, if I lose this airplane, obviously I'm going to have some good servos, but now I have servos that are painted. So we'll see. We'll see. So the landing gear situation. Now, looking at it, you're probably going, yeah, that looks pretty good. And it really does. But I am so not disappointed, but just not happy. But it's nothing, it's not something that I could avoid because I'm using non-scale, pretty much generic gear because I didn't want to spend the money on the scale gear. So I was already anticipating having this issue, per se. And the main thing that makes me not happy about this is the gear legs are straight up and down, but the gear doors are at an angle, even though I kind of curved them at the bottom there just to make them look a little bit better. The Robart gear for this airplane is actually the Ziroli P51 landing gear. So they fit because they do fit, but when they retract into the wing, they actually retract in pretty far. And you can't adjust these. The way they work, there's nothing that you can adjust to get them to travel not as far. They have to go their full amount. So to get the geared doors to somewhat be flush with the bottom of the wing, they had to come off at an extreme angle, and I really didn't like that. I don't like the way it looks having them angled out. So the top part of the gear door is angled a little bit, but I bent and curved the bottom portion to be more straight and vertical, just to make it more aesthetically pleasing to look at when they're in the down position. The downside to me curving it like that is when the gear is up in the wells, that portion of the gear door is actually up inside the wing just slightly. There's really no way around that. I had to kind of split the difference. So it is what it is. And I used the supplied plywood doors that came with what got cut out from Nick's templates. I just added some 3/32 balsa to one side, put 2 layers of 6/10 ounce cloth on there, and then just made my little rig to attach to the gear. It's just taped on at the moment, but they are finished. They're just not firmly attached to the gear yet. Oh, and my building buddies, you're gonna like this. The glass that I used for the inside here is actually Dan Parsons glass cloth. Pretty neat, eh? Most probably aren't even going to know what the hell I'm talking about but for the scale builders that have been around for a while, probably remember Dan Parsons fiberglass. Really, really superior glass cloth. So, good stuff. I opted to not use the Ziroli Canopy, though I was going to, just because I'm a purist. I wanted it to be, it's a Ziroli Bearcat. I want it to be a Ziroli Bearcat all the way. So I was going to use the obnoxiously large and bulbous canopy that for some reason Nick designed that way. But, you know, I knew I would lose all the respect from my good buddy Rich Eggleston if I went with the Ziroli Canopy. So I gave the Fighter Aces canopy a try. This is a canopy that comes from Phil Clark over in the UK, and it's intended for the Bates Bearcat, but it fits on here absolutely perfect. I've had to change nothing on the structure. It just fits on there real nice. I mean, it could be glued on right now. It fits that well. And the nice thing about this canopy is when I got it. Oh, speaking of Bearcats, that's a fire truck. Watching an old video from 1969 of Daryl Greenemeyer breaking the speed record for propeller-driven airplanes. Pretty neat. Anyways, so the canopy came with a just a vacuum-formed plastic shell. This has been, I cut this out already. But the nice thing about that shell is I think it serves three purposes. One, to protect the canopy in shipping, keep it from getting scratched or dinged up. Two, you could cut this out and use it as an actual frame to go over the canopy, because normally when you mount your canopy, you mask off where the frame would be and you paint it on there. Well, this, you could actually cut it out and have an actual frame that sits over the canopy. And three, it's a kick-ass template. There was no visible markings on the canopy that showed where it should be cut out, so I just kind of eyeballed it and cut this out, and it fit right on the fuselage, just perfect. So then I took the shell, slid it over top of the actual canopy, drew a line, cut it out, and well, we already saw how it fits. It fits perfect. So that's great. That's really good. This morning, I faced and hinged, not faced, I faced the leading edge of the control surfaces and the trailing edge of the wing last week, but today I got it hinged. And boy, oh boy, I tell you, when it works, it just works. And that turned out so nice. Might be hard to see, don't know, but look at that trailing edge. Oh man. One of those things that just makes you happy, because it's hinging like this. You can't use like a Robart drill jig, because this is hinged on the top of the aileron and the very bottom of the flap. So typically I would make my own kind of jig, but I just did everything just by eyeballing it, and it turned out quite well. Only one flap I had to kind of oblong some holes to get everything to line up just right. As you can see, very large and obnoxious gap, which I knew that was going to be there, but I'm just going to take a piece of 1/4-inch balsa, glue it to the edge of the aileron, and that'll give me the perfect gap on each side. I would rather have there be a gap and then fill it in later than try to get everything just right when I'm hinging, because I like to have a little more wiggle room when I'm trying to get the hinging done. As you can see, gaps are not bad. There's a little bit more of a gap in the flap that I would like, but I'll probably just put a piece of 16th balsa along the trailing edge of the wing, and that'll fill in that gap just fine. The gap in the aileron is right where it needs to be to allow enough room for the hinges to do their thing. Because you can't have it too tight or else it's not going to work. So yeah, that is where we were at. It is looking extremely good, and I'm getting closer and closer to not being able to avoid this task much longer. I have been avoiding this like the plague. I already cut it out to the rough lines that I put on there, and I knew it wasn't going to fit, but I knew it was going to get me close to the ballpark. So we're not in the ballpark yet. We're kind of in the parking lot across the street, but it will work. It's just going to take a lot of trimming, and a lot of fitting, and I'm just not looking forward to that. That sucks. Anybody that enjoys doing something like this is just sick in the head. So So I'm literally saving that practically for last. I still haven't glued the tail section on yet. I'm going to get the belly pan done, get the firewall glued on, and actually get the cowl mounted before I glue the tail section on. Because as soon as I glue that tail section on, I no longer have this nice convenient tube-shaped thing to move around the shop. Now I have a big obnoxious tail to move around with it. So I am saving that. So the wing is pretty much to the point where I'm ready to do a final filling on it. So the wing will look very similar to the fuselage, where you can see remnants of some filler in all the sheeting joints. And it's really not going to take much. The way that I do the sheeting, it really turned out nice. It's very smooth. Just I have some of the cracks and stuff just need to be blended out better. But it's not going to take much. That's the best part. It's not going to take much at all. Pretty cool stuff. I'm so happy with how that canopy fit. I mean, let's get a good shot of this here. You know, not having the gear covers on there is just not acceptable. So many fly warbirds like this without gear covers. You can't do that. Ugh, they look so awful. So yeah, that turned out nice. Once again, I'm not happy with the gear doors, but they are what they are. Yeah, it just... Uh-oh. I hear an obnoxious cat coming down the stairs. Oh, boy. Uh-huh. He always knows when I'm taping, don't you, buddy? Yeah. So, for being only about 2 months into this project, and to be looking at basically a pretty complete airplane is pretty wicked. I mean, considering it's a Ziroli build and it's a Bearcat, this is not a simple airplane to build. You know, there's nothing straight, there's nothing flat. The whole airplane is just one giant curve. So the fact that I got it this far in this amount of time is pretty insane. And to be honest, I spend most of my time sitting in that chair watching that TV. So if I actually spent all the time that I spend down here working on the airplane, it would have looked like this after 1 month. But, you know, I don't want to burn myself out. I'm getting tired. Last weekend did some flying. My boy got to fly his extra one last time for the year, and I flew my beloved Midwest Citabria, which is my tribute to my grandfather, who he flew the full scale that looked just like that. And my dad flew one of this kit back in the mid-90s. So kind of a tribute to both my dad and my grandpa, because they, you know, my dad had the RC version many years ago, and my grandfather flew the full scale. Just love that airplane. Great airplane. Flies wonderful. And once again, when we look at the gear, it looks okay. I mean, most are going to look at it and go, yeah, that's how it's supposed to look. It just bothers me, but it is what it is. And as we take a peek up into our wing rack, there is a new addition sitting up there. Wonder what that could be. Any guesses? I can wait. All right, time's up. So, I've been asked about getting back into World War I, but I don't want another biplane. But I wanted something a little different, something more challenging to fly. I had the Eindecker for a while, but that was like flying a Senior Falcon. I mean, that thing was just a sweet little airplane to fly. So I wanted something a little more unique. So that I have gotten, I guess. So, not yesterday, was it yesterday? No, it was Wednesday. I picked up this quarter scale Balsa USA Fokker D8. It's got a G38 in it. Whoever built it did a pretty darn good job. From the lozenge fabric to the finish work, it turned out very well. I was told, excuse me, I was told that it had been flown, but I don't think so. Um, I'm having a hard time believing it's flown. Mainly because having a G38 in it means the exhaust comes right out and basically onto the landing gear wing, or whatever you want to call it. And it shows no signs of any fuel or oil ever coming in contact with the paint, which makes me believe that it's not flown. And also, the fuel tank that I took out of there was set up for glow fuel. So there's no way that fuel tank saw a lot of action, because it would have shriveled up that stopper in a heartbeat. So I got another fuel tank coming for it. I've already gone through it. Everything looks good. The servos are, not bad. Not great, but not bad. The only thing that concerns me is, like most of the World War I type airplanes, these struts are soldered together, which are the wing, which what mount the wing to it's a parasol wing. These are notorious for those welds to not hold up, and if they come loose, you have no struts holding the wing onto the airplane. So that kind of not a comfortable feeling, knowing if those solder joints come loose, the wing will basically just separate from the fuselage. And you all know how I fly. I don't exactly fly around in circles. So we'll see. But yeah, so more on that later when I decide to pull it back out. I think I've rambled on enough. I don't think I've done anything else that I haven't covered. I think next I'm probably going to seal up the gaps on my flaps and ailerons. Then at that point I'll be able to do the final fill and basically the final sand on the wing. And then the unavoidable. Ugh. I do not look forward to that. I have to get into a mood to even think about that stupid thing. But just like everything else, it's probably going to turn out to go smoother than anticipated. One more good shot of this bad boy. Just something about a Bearcat. It just looks mean, you know? Kind of like a Hellcat, but the Bearcat's even more of a mean-looking airplane. Because the Hellcat's big. It looks like when the Hellcat's coming at you, you're looking at a Hellcat head-on. It looks like a quarterbacker, getting ready to plow you down. This thing is even more so, because it's a little airplane that's nothing but engine and prop. That's why I like the Bearcat. And for being literally the same wingspan as a top flight P-47, this thing is enormous. I mean, look how thick that wing is. When I put my hand on there, that's a big airplane. So, yeah, I think we're going to leave it at that. I'm just about to lose my voice. So I'm going to have to go, I don't know, chew on some cough drops or something. I don't know. Yeah, so I doubt I'll have a video next weekend, unless I get a lot more stuff done on it. Or if I even attempt to put the stupid belly pan on there. I literally just cut that canopy and put it on like 2 minutes before I started this video. Because I was I bought some new scissors off Amazon, and they really did a good job for being a cheap, $10 pair of scissors. But, yeah. So that's that. We're going to sign off here, and I'm going to go do some more house cleaning. Everybody is gone for the holiday type stuff. I don't do the holiday thing anymore. Kind of lost my interest in that a long time ago. So while everybody's out doing their thing, I stay home and hibernate in the shop and clean the house. So my dirty bathroom is calling me. So gonna go clean that. Yay. All right. Until the next time. Later.